Greetings and God bless. I just wanted to think about why are people online, preppers, YouTubers, influencers, and I would say I've heard Anomaly say this, Peggy Hall, Mike Adams. If I think of another person, there might have been one other person that I've listened to. So these folks are, they're talking about educating people about natural health, um, liberty, being informed, and yet Mike Rowe on an interview. So so he's not necessarily talking about health. He's more of a advocate for vocational work, manual labor. Yet, so all of these people, though, like they've created their own career as a speaker, as an influencer, creating merchandise, selling merchandise. Okay, so these people are very successful entrepreneurs. Some more successful than others, but all of these have the nerve, the gall to be like, why aren't entry level workers taking these jobs? Now, those people like Anomaly, Peggy Hall, Mike Rowe, and who was the other person I mentioned, they would never take an entry level job at working at Dunkin' Donuts in 100-degree heat, working with hot fat in a place that doesn't have good airflow, probably maybe some toxic psychological, management practices, not to mention this invasive medical uh, experience that entry level workers have to deal with. It is only extremely desperate people who cannot find a way and who can't afford to be homeless that are working these jobs, um, and that can tolerate nasal jabs, suffocating, breathing in their own waste, dealing with the sinus infection, the cold, smoking a lot of pot or doing cocaine or whatever kind of things that prop you up, even cigarette smoking, being coffee, caffeinated soda. And by the grace of God, like, number one, I want to just be grateful. And I think we all really need to be grateful to these entry level workers that have made it possible for us to buy our groceries, go to a convenience store and buy that one thing that you needed, that that open the coffee shops and serve the coffee and, work at the gas station and all, drive the buses. Like, praise the Lord. God bless these people because they are the most essential just all around, and they're underpaid, overworked, especially now because so Anomaly, Micro, Peggy Hall, Mike Adams. So they all bash the people who don't want the jab to suffocate, the injection. So they're bashing those people because that's what entry level work requires now. Entry level workers are having to deal with this kind of crap. And that aside, even before this new fascism, this medical fascism came into power, like Micro, um, um, Mike Adams, Peggy Hall, Anomaly, they still wouldn't have wanted to work an entry level job at a coffee shop. They would have killed themselves to do any other job. I mean, like, they would have killed themselves to just, like, they would never do that kind of job. Maybe Anomaly might, but so these people who have a high status entrepreneurial, you know, insulated life are like, why doesn't why don't all those poor ugly people do those horrible jobs now in this medically fascist world. Like even I mean, and shame on Peggy Hall especially, and Mike Adams, and Anomaly, because they know that number one, it's a bad situation. So so there's people. Yes, there's number one. There's people who died because of these medical interventions, because of the lockdowns. 300 people committed suicide in 2020 during the lockdowns. And with the blaming and shaming that our friends, family, community, acquaintances think that they can do when you're not in their cult, because basically there's this new cult, and some of us don't want to be in that cult. I've volunteered at different, like when I was a new ager, and I would volunteer at a yoga center or whatever, and they would have their little ritual, their little mantra, their little, change their names and do their little sayings, and I just wasn't into it. I didn't feel it. I mean, and then, I would do a meditation thing and I would be like, "Well, I'm totally into that." So this current cult that's taken over the world, it's just not my thing. I am not into it. And there's other people who aren't into it, and influencers who know better, who are standing for liberty, freedom, God, and country, have just, oh my, it boggles my mind. And this happens like every few months. I'll hear an influencer say something against the entry level worker. Now, even before the lockdowns, even before this medical fascism, entry level jobs are totally unregulated. People are exposed to toxins, bad behavior, harassment, and not to mention the unregulated workplace. It's really like, so when you're paid a pittance, that means how much, like, so what are you gonna where are you gonna live? So when you're getting paid, $1,000 a month, if that much, because like a lot of workplaces don't want to give you full 40 hours a week. So you're making 20, 25 hours a week and maybe making six or 700 a month. What are you gonna rent? So Micro, Peggy Hall, Anomaly, Mike Adams, you need to talk about the housing crisis. Micro, you need to talk about the housing crisis, because working people need a place to live. They need a place to get good rest. All of the influencers should think about that. And the thing is, these influencers, they probably have property. They probably, um, don't want to talk about that. I mean, homelessness, it's so obvious in California. It's huge in California. Micro, it's huge in San Francisco. You see it every time you exit your doorway, I'm sure, or at some point. But why aren't these people talking about it? Anomaly, Mike Adams, Peggy Hall, Micro, talk about the homeless situation. Talk about the housing situation. Talk about how investors, international investors, property managers, landlords, are warehousing their properties because they make more money keeping the properties empty. And so there's like a 0% vacancy rate. And what there is available, it's astronomical. So if there is no housing for a level worker who's only making 600 a month, if there's no housing that they can afford, like what are they supposed to do? Oh, they should go on welfare. You know what? A working person does not like that, because when you apply for Section 8, which actually takes a couple of years, if that much, I mean, it could take longer. Number one, you're in the system and it's degrading. Like all the people I know who are privileged and who have never had to access government resources, they just assume the government takes care of everything, and they don't realize how humiliating, degrading, and inefficient and deliberately, there's a lot of friction. Like, you have to be really tenacious and really able to take a beating if you're going to access resources. And I know some people have a great time, it all works out, everything goes for government aid. But people I've known have had a very difficult time, and it's like it's like eats at your soul. Like, the people just are terrible. So when somebody is only making $600 a month because that's all the hours that they can get, or and the thing is, like, people are like, well, then that person should work two, three jobs. Who has that much energy to commute to two jobs? uh, and work this second job. It's hard, because you have stuff that you need to do. You have to clean, you have to bathe, you have to organize your life, you have to deal with your bank account. I mean, like, life has a lot of things. And I feel like these insulated, privileged YouTubers, and entrepreneurs, they just take it for granted. And they have been blessed with clarity of mind, they've been blessed with energy, and they just assume everybody, all these entry level workers, have the same clarity, the same energy, the same physical health. But these entry level workers don't necessarily. When you're an entry level worker, maybe making $1,000 a month, if that, like, that's not enough to eat healthy. That's not enough to get to always have purified water, purified air, you know, deal with ambient noise of the neighbors, or scary, intimidating drug dealers, drug addicts, homeless people on your block, because that's where you're going to be living if you're making so little. And so and so then somebody might be like, well, they should go make more money. Well, if they're going to make more money, they're not going to be working at your little gas station, coffee shop, donut shop, convenience store, grocery store, wherever. Like, so, you have to, sorry, you have to provide infrastructure for your entry level worker. And I keep saying this now, like, if your neighborhood, if you have all these jobs, like, I was living in Rapid City, and there were all these, like, workers wanted, job opening, start at $15 an hour. Number one, that wasn't going to be enough to afford rent. And the rent that you got, like, I saw this one guy's apartment, uh, he was paying 750, and it was maybe 125 square feet, maybe a little bit more. And it had a kitchenette, a little bathroom, a little living room, and a little sleeping area. But it was all just one room, kind of a shotgun. And it was a slum, and it was in this kind of slummy hotel. And I mean, $750, like, it was probably most of his income. And so when you're paying everything that you get, you don't have money for good food, not to mention being able to get a water purifier, or change out your filters, change out your air filters, you know, do other healthy things, maybe take a class, or go to a gym. So my point is that if you are in an area where you're used to the quality of life that you've become accustomed to, where there's enough employees, then you need to fight for good housing, affordable housing, and don't be a snob. I mean, because I think that's what these people, they're like, I don't want white trash entry level workers, you know, living near me. Well, have all these, like, empty buildings, um, like, uh, so downtowns are like ghost towns in a lot. So turn those into apartment buildings, or single occupancy rental units, or something like that. So just do that. Have some good public transportation. If you do that, you will have people relocating from Timbuktu. If there's, like if you have 2,000 single occupancy units, or 2,000 apartments, like a single occupancy unit for $500, and an apartment for $700, an apartment, one bedroom, and maybe a two bedroom, I don't know. But if you have affordable housing in a, with maybe a store nearby, or just if you have a lot of stores nearby, people will relocate because the housing market is so crazy. It's been taken hostage by these investors and landlords and property managers and the Airbnb industry. Because with Airbnb, landlords now are like, well, I can charge $100 a night, $300 a night, so I'm not going to charge, you know, like $700 or whatever a month anymore and rent this because I make so much in like 10 days compared to all year. So so now there's just no place for people to live. And that is part of why there's homelessness. So I think these entrepreneur influencers, like it's class warfare. I think some richer people or privileged people, insulated people, they think they're better than the riffraff that's doing those entry level jobs that they need them for. I mean, that's the thing. Like people despise the gas station attendant or the 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 badly made up whatever Walgreens associate or whatever. But you need those people. Those people really make the world go around. Everybody's like, oh, somebody's a doctor or somebody's a politician, wow. But those people don't make the world go around because if they died, they wouldn't, they would, you'd still be getting your coffee. And that's the thing. We are getting to see this the past couple years. We're like, where are those people? Where is the gas? Why aren't there enough people working at the restaurant, working at this place? Where are those people? They possibly did themselves in. They probably possibly got done in. They're opting out of the destroying their body. And if any of these influencers were in the same position, they too would not be risking themselves at these stupid jobs where it's not worth it. So maybe, I mean, I don't know if some of these people that, normally did occupy, I mean, I think we've lost a lot of population because of the lockdowns, because of the medical martial law. And I think some people have just been like, I'm moving to Alaska, or, I'm moving in with family, or I'm just giving up everything. Um, yeah. So we are, and what offends me is instead of being thankful, like pre 2020, like we could trust that there'd be enough people at the restaurant, or there'd be enough people at the gas station, or there'd be enough people here, there, and there at the grocery store. We just assumed there was enough manpower. And the funny thing is most places don't hire enough people anyway. That was my experience when I worked entry level jobs. They had one person doing three people's job. Like the last time, like I entered the workforce in 90 91, and so they would have one person working the desk and one person doing this and one person doing that. And I was in the Bay Area in San Francisco, and then I noticed it would be one person doing three people's jobs. So nowadays, like it's just crazy. Um, and employers are like, they don't worry about burning out their employees. Uh, and this also trickles down to how the employees treat customers, because the employees could care less because they're just like, they're treated like garbage. And so eventually customers can get to be treated like garbage. And after this psychological warfare that we've experienced the past 2 years, I mean, like, I am just so grateful to employees who are checking me out at the clothing store, or at the coffee shop, or at the grocery store, or convenience store, at the 7-Eleven, at the with the Federal Express or whatever. Like, because it's a hard job. That's the thing that these insulated entrepreneurs online, they forget, is that commuting, like getting ready for work, commuting, and actually trying to get a good night's sleep right before. So many times I couldn't sleep. then I had to wake up at like 6 to get to work at 7, and like deal with being on my feet all day, being in an environment where the air is all toxic and there's all this glare from the fluorescent lights, and boredom out of my mind from the job. you know it is torture. Contemporary work, entry level work, is torture. And you have to be like, you know I just every second is torture. Like, I've got 6 more hours of torture, 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 torture. And somebody could tell me, oh, you just have a bad attitude about it. But if we put a lab rat, if we put 1,000 lab rats in that kind of situation, they would be under stress. So that's why I think these things are engineered, designed. I think that work does not have to be under horrible fluorescent lights with terrible toxic air, absolutely boring in this kind of, rigid military control mindset. I mean, where, like, I just, there's enough studies and experience and precedent of other successful companies where people want to work there. There's enough where you can engineer the workplace to be healthy. But since the basic infrastructure is designed to poison us, like the fluorescent lights, like the LED lights now that's everywhere, um, like the off gassing of fire retardants and whatnot in carpets, or off gassing of devices like computers and paint and whatnot. Everything is like so poisonous. And even like basic practices, like I worked at a software store, and we had to do this heated plastic wrap for the video games. And there was no ventilation, and I was breathing in burning plastic, because I had to do all these. And uh, it was probably illegal. I could have probably, if I knew what I was doing, I could have made a complaint. And that's the thing. There's no protection for the entry level worker. Nobody cares. The entry level worker is the most important, most vital part of our. They're the pillar of American civilization, because what America is about access to what we want. I think, it's the freedom to buy a cup of coffee. It's the freedom to get your car repaired. It's the freedom to whatever. As long as you're not hurting anybody, it's the freedom to spend your money as you want to. And if you want people there, you need to make it possible. You know, like at least like let the person have a good, decent home that's reasonably close so they can heal from the torture of the work experience. And, if anybody could, like, it would be great if the workplace could be, remove the toxic chemicals, the toxic lighting, toxic behavior. Like, oh, now the workplace, you have to worry about the LBGT thing. You have to worry about your skin color. Like, it's horrific. Like, entry level workers are in the worst situation, and either they have to buy into the wokeness, or they have to know how to act, or they have to have such the grace of God that, you know, like they're just facing persecution. Um, so really, I think Peggy Hall, Mike Rowe, Mike Adams, Anomaly. If you're going to really be as intelligent as you otherwise are, you need to stop doing this class warfare. Stop bashing entry level. Gotten sick, possibly opting out. Like, you would never go right now if you had to work at a gas station. You wouldn't, because you wouldn't be getting jabs and swabs and suffocate yourself. If you had a gun to your head, you wouldn't. And so these other people who are just as intelligent, who want to preserve their life, they want to live, they don't want to commit suicide, they don't want to have to go crazy now worrying about their skin color or the LBGT stuff when they're at work, serving coffee or donuts or doing your post office box stuff. So I think we need to be grateful to the entry level workers who have endured. They have gone through so much, like day after day, 40, 50 hours a week, um, much more agony than we have had to, especially the folks who have done this sober. Than when compared to the influencer who's at home, who gets to do their laundry whenever and make a snack whenever and take a nap whenever. uh and I'm sure some of you are like, I can't take a nap whenever because I have a call, I have to do my consulting. Well, F you, because you still have freedom. If you had to cancel your thing, you could, and the people would be like, oh, okay, when can we do? But when somebody's an entry level worker, they can't cancel something. They'll be fired, you know. If so, um, enough of this through this hell that the entry level workplace is. Like, we need to have solidarity. We need to like put ourselves in their shoes and be like, I wish it would be nice if there were more entry level workers like there were pre 2020. It would be nice if we had everything full, but there's been a crisis the past 2 years, and we've lost people. People have committed suicide. People have died. People are sick right now because they did what they were forced to do. And some have opted out. They've just thrown their hands up and been like, forget this. I'm not going to be tortured at work more than it already is. So I think instead of bashing people and saying you should go to work, you lazy person, like, shame on you, Micro, and you're the guy and Peggy Hall and Anomaly and Mike Adams. Shame on you guys, because you don't know. Like, somebody needs to, if anybody has any stories to share. Like, I haven't met anybody who's like, I used to work at Dunkin' Donuts, but now I don't because of this thing. Like, I don't know where all those people are. And there's certainly a lot more homeless, from what I've seen. I mean, it seems like homelessness has tripled or something in major cities. Uh, so, and I know everybody's like moving Democratic states to Republican states. So, but in the Republican states, I think like people are still not doing entry level, like there's still entry level jobs available. So I think the people who are well off have moved to Republican states, and they have maybe their remote jobs, located somewhere else. But those poorer people who work entry level jobs, where did they go? And I think they died, they're sick, they've opted out. They're like, I'm not going to kill myself for the job. I'm not going to make myself terribly disabled for this job, like, and I think people don't mind doing entry level work, but there's a line that's been crossed. And I think instead of bashing the entry level worker demographic, instead of bashing them, we need to be understanding, and we need to demand that the workplace be OSHA compliant, because it hasn't been. It's not OSHA compliant when there's a threat of having to suffocate, when there's a threat of having to get nasally raped, when there's a threat of getting your blood raped by mRNA self-assembling GMO technology. Like, to work at Dunkin' Donuts or at the gas station, and you're like, those people are lazy. They don't want to go do violate their bodies so I could get my coffee. like, still, like, like, it's still so despicable and disgusting when otherwise intelligent, um, good people, uh, put the lesser of 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 us down. And the thing is, what my point is we think that they are lesser. We think that entry level cashier at the grocery store or gas station, donut shop, coffee shop. We think that oh, they're they're just making entry level. But we see how important they are. Like if all of these influencers, if they disappeared, you know what? We wouldn't really miss much. Yes, yes, there's some great points some of them have made. There's some joy that they have brought. But if those influencers weren't around, like if the internet went down, we would actually discover and have greater, more meaningful connection and more human, uh, more contact with God if we were connecting with our proximity, like if our, excuse me, our local area. Like I have heard that some people don't like some. There's like a thought about online Bible ministries taking away from local churches. And I would say that is the case because you're not having to deal with the crappy interpersonal stuff, the creepy interpersonal stuff that can happen at churches. Like churches, like, so, so, like I tried going to a church when I was in Iowa and they were using Glade plugins like nobody's business. And the thing is, just like huffing, I think people can be addicted to artificial fragrances. And I do find that there's a demographic that really uses these fragrances. It's just terrible. And it's Mexican ladies. I don't know what is up with it. But like one time, a Mexican lady apparently cleaned an apartment I was going to move into, and she bombed it with this fragrance, and this fragrance lasted for like 2 months. And I did everything I could to get it out of the carpet. And I told the property manager, and I was moving in. She was like, "Well, you don't have to like if you don't want to take the place." I'm like, I had already like moved out. I mean, like, I just wanted the smell gone. I washed the walls. Anyway, it's it's horrible. And those chemicals cause cancer. They're really just hard on the body. I'm like having like a flashback just talking about it. So, um, I tried going to this church, and I told the lady, and she was like, "Well, we have to have these because people cook onions in the church." And there were people in her church, like she was the pastor's wife, and the pastor was having brain surgery, brain cancer. Another person had stomach cancer. Another person had just dropped dead that week. So I think that exposure to those type of toxic fragrances, and fragrances are toxic. They're unregulated. Like, I think that played a part in people's ailments and possibly early demise, combined with other things that have been going on, like breaking the cryptform plate, putting mysterious liquids in your bloodstream, breathing in your body waste, suffocating yourself. Those are all bad things to do, especially if you're already, uh, immunocompromised. So, if I had no other choice, because I was just like, I'm not gonna fight it, because I sent her information, I sent her alternatives, she never got back to me. So if there was no other church, I would press for more. It would shot iron sharpens iron. But you know, people are people. Christians are still people, and people don't want to change. People don't have an awareness of things like chemical sensitivity, fragrance sensitivity, light sensitivity, sound sensitivity. So, because I've been to other churches where they it was like this concert, and they had this crazy lighting set up and bright lights, and fortunately they didn't use fragrances and smoke machine, but it was super bright. And you know, people just are like, you need to adapt. You need to um, just shut up. Like you're just a troublemaker. But the thing is, if we look at it 100 years ago, a church service, it wasn't amplified. There weren't fragrances. It wasn't um, super bright stuff. Like it was human scale. But now everything is like it just has to be over just overstimulating. And perhaps I have some, shortcomings that make it harder for me to be overstimulated. But like little babies, like newborns and stuff, are in places like that. I'm like, these babies are probably losing their hearing when at some of these loud concerts, like because like some churches have this kind of concert thing because they're trying to appeal to a certain age group. So, but my point is that so when a church is inconsiderate or focusing on one demographic, like churches always want small families, they always want people with children like that. They just fall over themselves. Like when I'm just I'm over the hill. I don't have children. I don't have a lot of money. And I've noticed this with other people, like other people in my demographic. Um, Churches don't care about that single person, fixed income, that's not going to bring a lot of money, that's not going to bring children. Churches, they're just like awkward. They're like, we're a country club of rich people, rich white people. Um, for other rich white people. And I know this is bad to say, or it's unpleasant to say, but that's what kind of I observed. Like definitely, if you have children, churches really want you here, and they're going to bend over backwards for you.